Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, everybody. It's good to be able to celebrate Shabbat with all of you. This is one of those Shabbatot during our year that actually has a name. This is Shabbat Hakodesh, the beginning of the month of Nisan, the month where the holiday of Passover falls. So historically, a time for us to start to reflect, get ready for that time of freedom that we celebrate when we come to Passover. So on this Shabbat, let's reflect on what we need to do to be liberated, to get past the situation that we may find ourselves in, and recognize that sometimes the pharaohs are even inside us, in our hearts and minds, and we need to be free from them as well. So let's celebrate together a Shabbat of Freedom.
Thank you, Rabbi. And this is a favorite melody we haven't enjoyed as a community in a little while. This is called Ki Eshmerah Shabbat, which is because we protect and cherish Shabbat, the Jewish people will be protected and cherished as well. And we'll sing in celebration and freedom. Ki Eshmerah Shabbat El Yishmereni Ki Eshmerah Shabbat El Yishmereni Oti Leomeyan Beino
Beautiful song, beautiful melody, beautiful spirit. That Shabbat, we keep Shabbat, and Shabbat keeps us grounded, keeps us connected, keeps us spiritually connected to each other and to God. And that connection is all part of one universe, one world, one God. And we proclaim that oneness with the words of the watchword of our faith, the Shema Yisrael. Please join us.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malechuto Leolam
Of course, we sing Mi Chamocha at every service. But this time of year, as we approach Passover, it takes on that special resonance as we think about our ancestors going from slavery to freedom. So please join in singing Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi kamocha nehedar makodesh Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi kamocha nehedar makodesh nora tehilo osei yosef ele mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nehedar makodesh.
What a beautiful melody and a transition into a period of silent thoughts and prayers and meditations. We invite you to pause us if you'd like, or take the time that we're taking to acknowledge the beauty of Shabbat, a time of gratitude, a time of hope, a time of connection.
Sometimes when we pray, we embark on a journey to find the right words, to express our gratitude and our hopes for the future. And so in this prayer, Yihiyu L'Ratzon, we have an opportunity to search our hearts for the right words. Yihiyu L'Ratzon Imre fi Ve'hegyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri ve'goali Adonai tzuri ve'goali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my Redeemer. Yehiyu L'Ratzon Imre fi Ve'hegyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri ve'goali Adonai tzuri ve'goali.
We do turn to prayers of healing, and first we'll begin with a prayer for healing our planet, the planet Earth. Dear God, help us celebrate your awesome creation and all the life on the wondrous planet Earth. Help us feel connected to all of life on this small blue planet. Life is living us. Creator of the universe, help us understand that to master our world means to take responsibility not only for ourselves, but for all the creatures on earth. Help us use the power you gave us to build a better living world and not casually destroy the beauty we have borrowed from our children. We are the stewards, your partners in creation. We call on you for help and guidance. Our God, God of our ancestors and of our children, in this time of climate crisis, help us to preserve life, protect it, and defend it. We owe it to our children, those born and those yet to be. If not for us, then for them, dear God, guide us on our journey. We think too of all those who are suffering at this time of pandemic. And I'm thinking back to our ancient ancestors in the land of Mitzrayim, in the land of Egypt, and how they must have felt living through a time of plagues, holding on, cautiously waiting and hoping for a day of liberation. And so we too wait and we hope. And we know that there is a light that comes at the end of this time. We think of all those who are suffering in this time of pandemic, whether it's physically suffering or emotionally and spiritually suffering. We think of those in our community who are in need of healing from all manner of illness and disease. Marty Aronson, Elliot Auban, Benjamin Chaim Ben Saralea, Laurie Contorer, Michael Dalbora, Michael Ellsworth, Marcy Epner, Marshall Gelfand, Don Goldstein, Stuart Goodman, Jim Graham, Dennis Hernrich, Donna Horton, Julian Horwich, Martin Hutensky, Alana Issakow, David Kaminsky, Trevor Keeney, Lisette Cohen-Gale, Rana Kramer, Gabby Kraus, Howard Levin, Hannah Malya, Michael Maller, Barry Maram, Jana Melnikov, David Moody, Harriet Morrison, Leah Moskoff, Noach Ben David, Dave Pallister, Pesach Ben Lanavi Eugene, Mark Pullman, Rachel Yisraela Bat Chaim, Toddy Richmond, Maria Rodriguez, Nancy Roman, Roberta Rosenfeld, Marty Rudow, Sarah Batsheva, Shandel Batyevan Esther, Jeff Slowick, Dave Stratton, Vanessa Mashalea Yehoshua, Lionel Watson, Yitzchak Ben Moshe Dvorah, Mike Zidman. We ask God to remember all those we name aloud, those we hold in our hearts, and those whose names we don't know, and bring them a refuah shlema, a recovery of mind, body, and spirit, as we sing the words of Misha Berach.
Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimoteinu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Berach Imoteinu Nekor HaBracha Lavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, friends. You know, some of you probably recognize or realize or have read, this is sort of a monumental anniversary in a way. This is really about a year ago, almost exactly to the day, is when things shut down and life as we knew it ended, at least in many ways, not fully, but in many ways. And we entered a whole new world that we've been in for a year. Truly remarkable. I remember I had to conduct a wedding the Saturday, so today's Friday, a year ago. I had to conduct a wedding at the Drake. And of course, the couple calls me on Friday and says there's just been a shelter in place order, and everyone's calling in and saying, you know, we can't come. What do we do? And of course, I worked with them, and we ended up having a very small ceremony. Lovely couple. Parents are members of the congregation, live in Highland Park, and are just great people. And that actually happened many more times, similar kind of situation. But it's been an enormously difficult, painful year. And I was thinking last night, and what's kind of a theme that we can draw from this? And there are many different themes, but one of them is brokenness. Brokenness. Now, that's not the full theme, but it's a very powerful theme. In fact, we heard a little bit about it last night in the president's remarks, where he quoted that Hemingway passage, "The world breaks everyone, but some are strong in the broken places." It's It's a very powerful idea. I think it's from, I can't remember which book, but it's a very powerful idea that we all get broken somehow. Some, of course, are more broken than others. Some are hurt more. We may be experiencing the same storm, but we're not all on the same ship. It's very important to remember. But all of us throughout this year have felt a sense of brokenness. So how do we respond? How do we process that? And I can't answer that full question in a short sermon. So wait for the High Holy Days where we'll talk about this in more detail. But I was thinking of kind of a variety of different steps that we have to go through, kind of like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and the stages of grief. This is a little bit simpler, but how do we process this brokenness? And the first, and probably the most important, is to acknowledge it, to acknowledge our feelings, to not paper over them. I thought one of the powerful moments of last night's remarks was when President Biden talked about his list, daily tasks, and the number of COVID deaths that are at the top, and acknowledging that. It's so easy sometimes to paper over real difficulties and deny them, deny reality. But that doesn't work. Maybe it gives us a short-term boost, but acknowledging what's really happening is kind of the first step to dealing with it. I mean, we all know, if maybe we've participated in them or we know people who have the 12-step programs where you acknowledge who you are and what's going on. And so when we are facing a brokenness and difficulty, we have to acknowledge that's how we feel. The second part is, of course, related to it, but it's slightly more, and that's accepting it. There's a difference between acknowledgement and acceptance. Acknowledgement, you can say something's happening, but you can say, but I don't accept that that's what the truth is, and I'm going to fight it with everything I have. Accepting something means I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to accept that's happening, accept that's very difficult, and come up with a way to deal with it. Kind of like, after when the lockdown started, you say, you know what? I recognize that there is a massive pandemic, and I accept that my whole life is going to change. My kids can't go to school, and I have to worry about getting sick, and people I know are going to get sick and perhaps die, and I'm going to do everything I can to address it, but I accept it. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to, go out in the middle of public and try to make things what they're not. There's a certain kind of acceptance. And that acceptance phase takes a long time. That's an ongoing journey, and you're constantly adapting. But at the same time, these aren't all discrete steps. These, of course, overlap. But as we're accepting, we also have to seek to learn, to adapt. One time, I think this was from Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, a great modern Orthodox thinker. He said, generally, the best questions are not the why questions, why something happens, although the why questions are important. The better questions are what for? What for? What does this, for what, or you can say, for what reason is this happening? And we can give our own answer to that. It actually puts agency on us. When we ask something why did COVID happen? Okay, we need a scientific answer to that, of course. But when we ask the question, why is this happening to me? That takes away our agency, takes away our power. When we ask, what is this for? It actually gives us power to adapt to the situation. What can we do in response? What is this meant for us to do? Now, there's not an objective answer. There's not one clear answer, but it does force us to respond. So, for example, I'm asking myself, the early days of the pandemic, all my kids are home from school. What is this for? And I think to myself, well, maybe it's for some more family time. That's a positive. It's trying to adapt and learn some positive lesson. That doesn't, again, it's not papering over the reality. It's not papering over it's not trying not to accept something. It's saying, this is the reality. So what can I do with it? Right. And that has been, obviously it's easier for some people to ask this than for others. If you didn't get COVID, or if you live in a comfortable home, it's easier to ask this question, but everyone has to ask it. What is this for? What can I learn from this? How can I get stronger in the broken places? How can we as a community get stronger in the broken places? And again, this is a process, and we're going to be answering this question for a long time. I mean, this doesn't end. We're constantly learning and growing from our experiences. And then the fourth part, the fourth stage, I think. And again, I think this has started a little bit, but it hasn't reached its full fruition, is a sense of renewal and healing. That there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think we heard a little bit of that last night, and we've been feeling that for a while. Some people are closer to that than others, some who've been blessed to be able to get the vaccine. But when we get through this, we have to try to renew our own lives. We have to try to, we can't go back to what it was before. But we have to try to learn from what happened and to create a stronger community. You know, this pandemic, and this is from a social justice perspective that, of course, we'll explore later, but pandemic highlighted some of the truly deep and awful divisions in our society and the privileges that some enjoy and some don't. How can we renew our country, renew our values, and renew ourselves? That's the stage we are getting close to and hopefully entering into soon. And that'll be the conversation we'll be continuing to have this summer, the years ahead. One of the beautiful things about Judaism and about America is that we're constantly renewing ourselves. History isn't static. History grows, history progresses, and we constantly are adapting to new circumstances. And this summer, this coming spring, will be a time of adaptation, of regrowth, and we'll be doing that together. But at this moment, let's acknowledge that brokenness. Let's acknowledge that loss as we prepare ourselves for a time of renewal. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Yasher Koach. It made me think of one of my favorite quotes, which is from, not from Jewish sources, Adlai Stevenson, who ran for president twice from Illinois. He said, change is inevitable. Change for the better is a full-time job. So what we learn from this and how we go forward is really important. Thank you for the wise words. We'll turn to the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. We're thinking of all those whom we've loved and lost, those near to us, those far away, those whose names we know and those we don't know. We ask God to remember all of their souls. In our own community, we're still marking the Shloshim for Suzanne Carter Meldman, Jacob Harris Grossman, Gloria Goldblatt Gershkoff, and Shelley Plager. We remember the art sites this week of Roselle Adler, Harold Anson, Rose Volman Applebaum, Robert M. Boebert, Ruth Asher Becker, Irv Biederman, Patricia Borenstein, Barry Flitcher, Estelle Flitcher, Peggy Friedman, Robert Gianni, Lois Good, Arnold Goodman, Tilly Silverstein Goodman, Melvin J. Harris, Joni Caden Kaplan, Betty Ethel Kaplan, Fremont Kaufman, May Krupinski, Bessie Lurie, Maurice Marks, Harry Mednick, Edward Harry Meldman, Shirley Michaels, James Permut, Bobby Potasnik, Estelle Plotnick, Louis Pollock, Rose Richardson, James Salzenstein, Victor Smith, Lauren Stein, and William Weiner. We ask God to remember all of them as we remember them by saying the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Gadash Shemei Rabbah, B'alma divrach hirute v'amlich malchute, B'chaye chon uv'yom echon, uv'chaye dachol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agalau v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, Le'olam Olme Omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shmei Dekudesha Brichu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma limru, amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Cantor Jay, thank you for all the beautiful music today. And what closing song do you have for us?
Well, following the inspiration you started us with, Rabbi Ike, focused on the Passover story as our community gears up to celebrate and remember the Exodus from Egypt. This is Ozi V'Zimrat Yah, that Adonai is our source of strength. And as Rabbi Evan taught, perhaps we can go through the phases of renewal with that strength of faith in our hearts as we sing together, Ozi V'Zimrat Yah. Ozi V'Zimrat Yah, Vayhi li Lishua. 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 Ozi V'Zimrat Yah, Vayhi li Lishua.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.